Hello, everybody. Dave Neal here, stand-up comic, host of Bachelor Nation News. In this video, Clayton Echard releases a statement, a very passionate statement, where he discusses the fall from fame, the dopamine crash, having kind of been experienced, the red carpet rollout that exists, and what it's like to come back down. And I think it's so fascinating to have someone like Clayton talk about this, but also from a place where he's bringing science into it. He's bringing the ideas of why we feel the way we do, and he's shining light on the dark places. As we say, sunlight's the greatest disinfectant, and he for sure is disinfecting all the probably grossness he feels with regards to how his season turned out. You know, he looks at it and he goes, I only got 250,000 followers. They told me I'd go on the show and I'd get X, Y, and Z. And as he's talked about from a very humble place and a place of humility, he says, that just didn't happen. He said, I made more money before going on the show than after. So a lot of people go on the show and part of what they get out of it is some equity, some social media following. And he did get some of that, but probably not enough to just catapult him into success like it seems some former alumni or some alumni it happens to. So we're going to jump into this story, talk about it all right now, and I'm going to share his statement right after a few moments where I promote some things at DNeals on Instagram and also patreon.com/Dave Neal. I can't believe I'm doing this, guys. On today's Patreon, which I'm going to record right after this, I'm going to share, and I already promised them I'm going to do it, so I have to do it. I'm going to share the rumor of who I've been told is being sued for $500,000 by Bachelor producers. Now, I'm just going to tell you this right now. If this makes its way onto any public forums, I'm going to be so bummed out, okay? Please, this is just for Patreon, patreon.com/Dave Neal. I'm going to share that info with you right after this. Please, I'll never be able to share these fun secrets again if it makes its way out. So you can join the Patreon. If someone really doesn't like me and they want to pay $5 to join the Patreon and then rip it and share it to Reddit, you can do that, I guess. I'll just be heartbroken. It's just for Patreon. I'm going to be doing that right after this. Okay, let's get into this story. So I'm going to share with you guys what Clayton said about what's been pressing him, what's been on his mind with regards to the withdrawals that come from being the star of a show. I'm going to play that for you in a second. But first, I want to share a clip that I recorded yesterday with Reality Steve on his podcast. I was driving from South Carolina to North Carolina over the border where I was going to take a flight from Charlotte to LA. The flight was on time, but airlines are a zoo right now. So my thoughts and prayers to anyone out there flying because it's a disaster. Either way, here's what I had to say to Reality Steve about what I thought was the top story of the year.
You on the spot, and maybe should have given you a heads up, but anyway, it's not a huge thing. But off the top of your head, we're at the end of 2022. A lot has happened in the Bachelor world. Can you think of a story or a storyline from the year 2022? So that would include Clayton's season and Rachel and Gabby's season and Bachelor in Paradise from this year. What do you think was the biggest story in 2022 in Bachelor Nation?
Well, it's a good question, and there's several, but I think the hottest story was Clayton being accused of having sex by the lady. Not, it's not like third-hand knowledge, but the fact that she said, I banged Clayton last night, and she said it in a TikTok.
Oh, that story. I thought you were going about the show. Okay, that's fine. No, that's a good one.
And then we don't even, and then he has to prove his whereabouts through the GPS on his phone.
Yeah.
What the hell was that?
Yeah.
And then she gets the hot seat so bad, she kind of goes into hiding, has no idea what sort of trouble she was getting into, provides surveillance footage that clearly wasn't him.
Yeah.
What a story, guys. So you can listen to our full conversation, Reality Steve's podcast. He does it daily. He does his daily in the morning. I do mine daily in the afternoon. I feel like we have an empire coming. All right, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this story. Here's what Clayton had to say today about what he's been thinking. It's fascinating, and he's probably the forefront of alumni talking about this, and I think he should completely own this platform as he discusses the sort of science as it comes with depression and all of the other issues that come from being exposed without prior warning. It's like becoming the Bachelor. He came out of nowhere. That's like being in single A ball. Next thing you know, you're starting in the World Series. He had no slow rise to fame here. He said, the more willing we are to listen to others' perspectives, the more likely we are to understand them. Thank you to everyone that has taken the time to listen to mine. All right, let's read it. There's something pressing that's been on my mind that I want to be vulnerable and share with you all to bring a sense of awareness to this matter that I feel isn't spoken about, as many people in a position similar to me feel guilty for doing so. That, my friends, is one hell of a sentence. It's this withdrawal or come down effect that often occurs post-fame or post-success. I've spoken with various individuals that have been in the spotlight and then all of a sudden are out of it. And when they are removed from it, depression can often follow suit. We just aren't as enthusiastic about life as we were in the moments where we were experiencing a more exciting lifestyle. But why is this? Why can't we just go back to what we knew once before? In my experience, it has to do with dopamine releases, something we as humans don't typically consciously control. Known as the feel-good hormone occurring in the brain in a sharp drop in them as we acclimate back to post-success life. We no longer are getting these natural highs where our dopamine levels are constantly elevated. It's quite the opposite, as normal life no longer excites us. A low or depressed dopamine level is directly correlated with sadness and lack of motivation, and since we are no longer experiencing the natural highs, we can fall victim to this state of addiction. We crave chasing the high trying to get back to what we once had because we just want to feel good again. We are creatures of comparison to a fault, and it can be dangerous. In this last year, I've landed a helicopter on a yacht, traveled the world, dune buggied on the black sand beaches of Iceland, went inside a volcano, rented out an entire palace for a dinner date, stayed in a penthouse suite at one of the nicest hotels in the city of Toronto, had VIP access at multiple events and clubs all around America, and so much more. And then it was all gone. I was no longer the hot commodity. And even though I said I was perfectly fine with that, I couldn't help feeling sad. I want to go back to normal, but normal is tough to go back to when you've experienced the unbelievable. I'm not sharing this message for sympathy. I'm sharing it for awareness because I feel many others in similar positions go through this withdrawal effect. They want to be happy, but the sharp drop in dopamine levels can be similar to overcoming an addiction and makes it challenging to acclimate back to a sense of normalcy. And what's worse is people make them feel guilty for expressing their struggles and either knowingly or unknowingly invalidate their feelings through telling these individuals, you should be happy, look at everything you've experienced. You've done more than most people, so you don't have a legitimate reason to be upset. And oh, boo-hoo. You have to get a normal job again like the rest of us. I feel so bad for you. And boy, do we see these in the comment sections. These comments don't help, are insensitive, and often come from a place of ignorance and or envy. Trust me, many of us want to return to normal and are taking action in order to find happiness in more sustainable areas. But our bodies and minds must first return to normal as well physiologically, and that is something that is mostly out of our control and requires a significant amount of effort to combat. Again, I don't want your sympathy. Many of us don't. We just want to feel seen, heard, and understood. That's all anyone really wants. Thank you for your time. Signed, Dale Moss. No, Clayton Echard. And of course, the comment sections are going to be people that feel for Clayton. The Mental Wealth Podcast, who Clayton just spoke with, said, just want to affirm you, brother. Thank you for being open and honest about your journey, both with me, multiple platforms with your upcoming book, etc. We need voices like yours. Ash Talks Batch said, well said, Clayton. Appreciate your openness, vulnerability, and use of the platform to promote mental health awareness. So and on, people are relating and saying they feel Clayton and exactly what he's saying. Dopamine, it's a good thing. It's a feel-good reward. It tells our body, like, all right, do more of that. It's why we release dopamine because it helps us procreate. We like sex. It's most notably involved in helping us feel pleasure as part of the brain's reward system. Sex, shopping, smelling cookies baking in the oven, all these things can trigger dopamine release or a dopamine rush. It plays a role in learning and attention, mood, movement, heart rate, kidney function. So it's good for the body, absolutely. But of course, it comes with a price. We look at if your baseline level is 100%, and again, this is just a chart that doesn't factor in where in your brain and body dopamine is being released, but food can increase that by 50%. Video games, sex can double your dopamine, cocaine, quadruple, amphetamines, methamphetamines, and of course the list goes on. So just chasing that high. Now look, as a stand-up comedian, and our next video is going to discuss this as more in depth. But as a stand-up comedian, you're chasing that high of getting the approval from the room. Nothing is better than having a great stand-up set in front of a packed crowd. Nothing says I belong more in society, I'm wanted, I'm valuable, than doing your job well. You feel like you have a place. You feel like your identity is carved out. So when it's taken away, like in Clayton's scenario, It's so easy and low IQ to be like, boo hoo, go back to your normal job like the rest of us. That's like pulling somebody down back to the place where you're like, anybody who's happy with what they're doing doesn't say boo hoo, come back. It's a very jaded feeling, right? And I know this from a more specific place where I look at my relationship with sugar, which I've talked a lot about. I'm looking forward to going keto. I'm trying to get through the holidays and not, completely fall off the wagon, but I'm going to spend all of January 100% avoiding sugar in all of its forms. Sugar's effect on the brain. Like sex and dopamine, sugar and dopamine are also heavily linked. When an individual eats sugar, the brain produces huge surges of dopamine. This is similar to the way the brain reacts to the ingestion of substances like heroin and cocaine. Researchers think that this might be because our bodies have adapted over time to seek out foods that are high in calories. For most of human history, it was important to eat a lot of calories in order to survive. With modern food technology and the widespread availability of high-calorie foods, at least in Western nations, this is no longer necessary for survival. And not to mention, sugar is, corn syrup is subsidized because corn's subsidized. So corn syrup replaced sugar, and they're putting in everything from ketchup to bread to everywhere. To barbecue sauce, it is everywhere. So it's like, imagine being addicted to heroin and they just sprinkle it on your French fries. Like, what? I had pizza the other night and there was sugar and honey drizzled on the pizza. I was like, this isn't fair. This isn't a fair thing. I can't avoid this. So anyway, I look at this because I have a sugar problem, and I also do have a problem with staying in my own lane and the dopamine rush that comes from the highs and lows of performing stand-up comedy, which is a very raw art form that, of course, has, like I said, its highs and lows. I get a dopamine rush when a video does well. The channel's performing very poorly this week, as it's the week between Christmas and New Year's. Barely anybody's watching. So I have to deal with the fact that, is my career is sort of tied to, it's performance-based. And Clayton, I'm sure, is extremely performance-based. So that's what got him to become a professional athlete and overcome being a walk-on college athlete. I mean, this guy has had successes every step of the way. He is so driven, and he has put himself in a position where he quite possibly can't succeed, not in the traditional mindset, because he can't compete and speak rational thought to a lot of the trolls and a lot of people out there. So my advice for Clayton is keep sharing these thoughts you're having of inadequacy. Keep sharing the thoughts of dopamine withdrawal, dealing with haters online, your mental health, because it's people like him, 6'4", ripped guy, has everything going for him. And for him to be able to talk about, like, look, this isn't enough. I still have to deal with this. It shows other people that, the solution to your problems isn't teeth whitening or Botox or whatever it may be. Those are all things you can, by all means, go get. But the solution comes with regulating those feel-good hormones to a sustainable level, not all or nothing. That's when you're in a toxic relationship, you fight, you make up, the dopamine release. I get it, guys. Codependency. I get it. If I could link my problems with codependency, sugar addiction, and that's the goal, right? Is to solve all of our inner child issues. And Clayton, I can't thank him enough for the work he's doing and sharing about all of this. Now, will people leave comments saying boo-hoo? Yeah. And my thought to them, it's like, look, you're on a different playing field if that's what your takeaway is. But for those of us that are looking to learn and are looking to grow, my thought is, by following Clayton, you're in good company because he's doing just that. Let me know what you guys think. More content coming your way. I've got some tea to spill at 10 a.m. right after this on the podcast. On the Patreon. And then I'll be back on the podcast Bachelor Rush Hour this afternoon. We'll talk to you guys then. Bye now.